welcome to the Movies Past and Present podcast. It's October 8th, 2020, and this is episode 54. I'm your host, Stanford Clark, and I'm podcasting from the crossroads of the West in beautiful Salt Lake City, Utah. Just like my blog, moviespastandpresent.com, I'll be providing recommendations, commentary, and reviews about current and classic cinema. Thanks for tuning in, and let's do this thing. All right, well, new in theaters this week, it's really it's semi-bleak, but I think it all just depends on how you look at it. So you probably read the announcement that the Regal Theaters chain has temporarily closed again. They closed today, October 8th. And, we'll see when they open. Other theater chains, other big ones like AMC and Cinemark have committed to stay open. The challenge is that, there's just the studios are not releasing a lot of new content for the theaters. And I'm wondering, even if they did, would people show up? Last week I went and saw, again with one of my friends, Star Wars The Empire Strikes Back, which is, one of my favorites. And I think it's also a film that a lot of people like. And albeit it was a weeknight, but still we were the only people in the theater. And so, and the theater was very clean. Cinemark is doing a great job, and we felt safe. But I don't think that, and I know that Cinemark staggers the start times, I think, as other theater chains are doing, when you actually, go when the movie starts. So there's not a big line at the box office or whatnot. But I swear we were the only people in the entire theater, other than the three employees that I saw. So that's a bit of a heartbreaker, and I know it's multifaceted and complicated, but I think that's a big challenge. A lot of movies have moved into 2021 and beyond. Black Widow from Marvel Studios moved from November into May 2021. Warner Brothers just did a huge shuffle of all their films, moving everything into 2021 and beyond. And then the really kind of the nail in the coffin for, I guess, two of them, the next James Bond movie, No Time to Die, which I've really been excited about, moved from November 20th to April 2nd, 2021. And then just today, finally, Disney and Pixar announced that their Pixar's next animated film, Soul, which I'm also very excited about, which was also supposed to open up on the same weekend that No Time to Die was, on November 20th, that they're going to put it directly on Disney Plus, and it'll make its debut on Christmas Day. And they're doing it without having an extra charge like they did with Mulan for that premiere access thing. It's just going to be part of the Disney Plus service, and it's a Christmas gift to everybody. So every market that's got Disney Plus, and in other markets internationally where don't have Disney Plus, they're going to put it in theaters, I read. But anyway, so sad news for movie theaters. However, there's a couple of new releases that I'm going to be talking about, and also, there's just a lot of cool opportunities to see some movies on the big screen if you look for them, and if you want to venture out, put on your mask and go to the movies. Again, it's such a mixed bag because I don't want the movie theaters to go under. Then also, if they're too crowded, then it feels very unsafe. So they're doing a good job, I know, about social distancing when you buy your seats, and the auditoriums are very limited, but I still haven't been in a movie with this, had even a semi-full auditorium. So, for what it's worth, but just I suggest check your local listings. I know for sure that Pixar, speaking of Pixar, that their great film from 2017, COCO, is getting re-released in theaters across the U.S. Also, it's been interesting. Disney re-released their 1993 comedy Hocus Pocus, and that's become quite a cult classic. it plays on TV pretty much every day during the month of October. And I read that it actually did quite well in theaters last week. So that's an option. I also noticed in my local theaters here in Salt Lake City that Beetlejuice was playing. It's the Tim Burton comedy with Michael Keaton. And then the horror film A Nightmare on Elm Street from 1984 that it's playing. I also noticed that the classic anime film Akira from 1988 was playing on the big screen too. And I don't know I couldn't find if that was like a special screening or if they were just going to be playing it, a couple times a day for the next few days or what. But anyway, check your local listings, because again, I think there's some really cool opportunities to see some of these comeback classics on the big screen, and then of course some of these other things which we'll get into right now. So there are a handful of new releases that are coming into theaters. This first one is called The War with Grandpa, and it actually was set to be released in 2018, and it got held, which isn't necessarily a good sign. I mean, it doesn't look like it's really going to be a great film, but holy smokes, it's got quite a cast. So this is a comedy from a studios called 101 Studios, which I've never heard of, but whatever that means. But it's based on a book by Robert Kimmel Smith, and the movie stars Robert De Niro, Christopher Walken, Uma Thurman, Rob Riggle, Cheech Martin, and Jane Seymour, of all people. And it's about a sixth grader who's played by a kid named Oaks Fegley. And the description says he's pretty much your average kid. He likes gaming, hanging out with his friends, and his beloved pair of Air Jordans. But when his recently widowed grandfather, played by Robert De Niro, moves in with the family, the boy is forced to give up his most prized possession of all, which is his bedroom. Unwilling to let such an injustice stand, Peter devises a series of increasingly elaborate pranks to drive out the interloper, but Grandpa won't go without a fight. Soon the friendly combatants are engaged in an all-out war with side-splitting consequences. So to me, this looks like it's Home Alone, but the family didn't leave town. It's just the kid and then the grandpa are just playing these elaborate pranks on each other. Again, interesting cast. It could be funny. I guess we'll have to see. But that opens up in theaters tomorrow on Friday, October 9th. Also opening up is a movie called Yellow Rose, which is a drama from Sony Pictures. It's directed by Diane Paragus, and this film looks, rather serious. I think it's played at a lot of film festivals over the last bit, particularly back when festivals were going on, even though there's been a lot of virtual festivals. But still, this is an interesting film. The description says that it's about a young woman named Rose. She's an undocumented Filipino teenager, and she dreams one day of leaving her small Texas town to pursue her country music dreams. Her world is shattered when her mom suddenly gets picked up by ICE, by the Immigration and Customs Enforcement folks from the government. And Rose, facing this new reality, is forced to flee the scene, leaving behind the only life she knows, and embarks on a journey of self-discovery as she searches for a new home in the honky-tonk world of Austin, Texas. It is it looks pretty interesting. I watched the preview. I'll have a link to the website on in the podcast notes on my blog, and you can see what you think. So anyway, those are probably the two biggest releases of the week. The War with Grandpa is rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for rude humor, language, and some thematic elements. And then, which is probably just like getting a paint can in the face over and over. And then Yellow Rose was rated PG by the Motion Picture Association for some strong language and teen drinking. Just a couple of other things to let you know about in theaters. So you know how much I love the Turner Classic Movies Big Screen Classic series. This month they're going for Halloween, and as far as I know, they are still playing these. They're still doing their movies. at the theaters that are open. So on October 11th, 12th, and 16th, they're going to be showing Alfred Hitchcock Psycho, which believe it or not, I've seen, and it's terrifying. How I feel, I don't care for horror movies in any way, shape, or form, and that one just scared the crap out of me. But it's great film, and it will probably, of course, great to see it on in a beautiful print on the big screen. This is, as I mentioned, through the TCM Big Screen Classics series. So you go to fathomevents.com/TCM, and that'll give you all the information about the theaters it's playing and the times on those 3 dates. Also at Fathom Events, but these aren't part of the TCM series, but they're being released from the studios via Fathom Events. Paramount Pictures is releasing a 40th anniversary screening or print or whatever you call it of Friday the 13th. That horror film. It looked to me like they had also done a couple of these screenings last week, but they're doing them again tomorrow, Friday, August 9th, and then October 9th, and then on Saturday, October 10th. So if you're into Friday the 13th or want to see the original, there's that going on. And then also there's a 30th anniversary screening that StudioCanal and Rialto Pictures are doing of their film Total Recall, starring Arnold Schwarzenegger and Sharon Stone. That's happening on October 10th, 13th, and on the 27th, so a little later in the month. But if you want to see Total Recall on the big screen, here's a chance. So as I mentioned, lots of interesting opportunities in this very weird time. But hopefully you can, if you want to do it, go to the cinema, be safe, and have some fun. All right, for reviews this week, I wanted to talk about a movie I watched on Netflix, and it's a new release, and it's called ENOLA Homes, and ENOLA is spelled ENOLA, and backwards it's alone, which is kind of a plot point, but we'll keep it spoiler free. This is a crime kind of comedy drama. Enola Holmes is actually the teen. Well, not actually. This is based on a young adult book series, and about what if Sherlock Holmes had a teenage sister. So it's set in the same time in Victorian England, and it's a really interesting movie. It was originally scheduled. It was originally a Warner Brothers produced movie that was scheduled to come out this year. So again, we should just change the name of this podcast to the COVID-19 movies past and present podcast, because it's all COVID-19 is affecting everything right now, particularly movies. But Warner Brothers sold it to Netflix, and Netflix then just put it directly on their platform and they just skipped theaters altogether. And I think it's probably a good choice, because it's not. I mean, it would have been fine to see it on the big screen, but it's one of those movies that's good, not necessarily great, but it was entertaining. So Enola Holmes is played by the Netflix darling Millie Bobby Brown, who you might know from Stranger Things. Sherlock Holmes is played by Henry Cavill, who you might know as Superman from some of these recent DC comic adaptations, among other things. He also played the bad guy in that last Mission Impossible movie. But this film is interesting, and it's very stylish. Millie Bobby Brown has to carry it, and she does a credible job. There's a lot of breaking of the fourth wall in this, where Millie's talking, or I guess Enola is talking directly to the audience, which is charming. And then, kind of near the end of the second and then into the third act, they don't use it as much, and then when she starts doing it almost seems jarring. So I found that to be a little, again, charming yet problematic, and it's just like Sherlock Holmes. It's a pretty decent mystery. Their mother disappears, and the mother is played by Helena Bonham Carter, and so that just sends Enola off on this mystery, or to trying to solve the mystery as this very independent teenager. Sherlock Holmes has got stuff in mind for her. They also have another brother who is a total jerk. So Enola's got to deal with her big brothers, being a young woman in society, trying to figure out all these mysteries. So there's all sorts of stuff. There's all sorts of stuff going on. Enola also runs into a young lord who is played by the actor Louis Partridge, and so there's a little bit of a kind of a romantic thing going on, teen romance, and it adds some interest. It adds some interest to the plot. I found it to be, again, just a very pleasant way to wind down after a long day, and kind of a classic Netflix thing, which, again, maybe not the highest quality, but it was decent, and again, happy to watch it. I gave it 3 out of 5 stars. So if you want to check out a fun little mystery some night on Netflix, that's harmless but kind of a fun entry into the genre, check out Enola Holmes. For Classic Cinema Corner this week, I'm just doing another entry that's in my must-see sci-fi watching project that I've been doing with through that really great book from Turner Classic Movies. So I'll have links to the stuff in the podcast notes on my blog. But this book has 50 movies. They call it 50 movies that are out of this world. It's written by a woman named Sloane DeForest, and I've just had a blast. Many of these movies I have seen before, but this particular movie I had never seen before, and it really, I hate to use this phrase, but it kind of blew my mind. It's the 1985 dystopian future movie called Brazil. And perhaps you've heard of it, or maybe you haven't, but I think it's definitely worth checking out if you're wanting to have kind of an adventuresome movie watching event. This film is directed by Terry Gilliam, and he also wrote it with the help of writer Tom Stoppard. But Terry Gilliam, he's a Brit, and he was a big part of the Monty Python's Flying Circus troupe. And then he's just a very good director. This film is so experimental and so bonkers in so many ways. But let's see if I go into a little bit of detail about the plot. It stars Jonathan Pryce, and he plays this British man named Sam, and they're in this futuristic society, and he's a bureaucrat. He just he works for the government, and he has this recurring dream that there's this woman in a cage that's up in the air, and he has these big wings, and he goes up and saves her, and at one point early on in the film, he actually sees this woman who's been in his dreams, and that sets the plot going forward. But there's a lot going on there. There's terrorists that are doing all this bombing, and then the bureaucracy is kind of overwhelming everybody, and this interesting plot unfolds. But holy smokes, it is one of the most dystopian yet fascinating views of the future. I mean, it's completely outlandish as it moves forward. Yet it was mesmerizing, and it's one of those movies that really stayed with me. I heard one critic, or I read one critic's review that referred to it as almost a whimsical film, and if you can picture a whimsical dystopia, then maybe that's more to the point. It's really interesting, really one of a kind, and one that I think might be worth checking out. It was released in 1985. It was rated R, and so there is some objectionable language and whatnot. So and some pretty graphic violence, particularly because of there's these terrorist attacks going on. But the cast is really interesting too. So I mentioned Jonathan Pryce is in it. Robert De Niro plays a pretty key role. I'll let you watch it if you know. So no spoilers here. Catherine Hellman plays the mother of Jonathan Pryce, but Ian Holm is in it. Bob Hoskins, Michael Palin, Jim Broadbent. Anyway, just a really interesting cast, and the most interesting production design, and it was new to me. I had read about this film for many years, and I was so glad I finally got to see it. So I rented it on Apple iTunes, and so there you have it, Brazil from 1985. Well, that does it for this episode of the Movies Past and Present podcast. Again, links and more information about the movies discussed in today's podcast can be found in the podcast notes on my blog at moviespastandpresent.com. You can subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and Google Podcasts. Links are also on the blog. Also, follow me on Instagram. I'm at MoviesPAP, as in past and present. As always, I hope you will enjoy some good movies this week, whether they be from the past or present. And until next time, thanks for listening, and hope you and yours have a safe and enjoyable week.